Welcome to Daily Papers, the podcast where we break down fascinating new research. Today, we're talking about artificial intelligence and a question that sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie. Can an AI be moral? And if so, how does it actually think through an ethical problem?
Right. We rely on AI for so much, from writing emails to helping doctors. But as these systems get more involved in our lives, they're going to face morally tricky situations. And researchers want to know what's going on under the hood. It's not enough for an AI to just give the right answer to an ethical dilemma. We want to know how it got there.
Exactly. Imagine two students get the right answer to a complex math problem. One of them followed all the steps logically, the other one just made a lucky guess. Even though their final answer is the same, you trust the first student's method a lot more. This paper argues we should think about AI morality in the same way.
So, to investigate this, researchers from Indiana University introduced a new concept they call moral reasoning trajectories. It's basically a map of the AI's thought process as it tackles a moral question. They gave several large language models, think systems like ChatGPT, a bunch of ethical scenarios and asked them to reason through them step by step.
And at each step, they analyzed what kind of moral reasoning the AI was using. Because in philosophy, there isn't just one way to decide what's right or wrong. There are different ethical frameworks, which are like different lenses for looking at a problem.
Let's quickly break down the big ones they used. First, you have deontology. That's a fancy word for rule-based ethics. It says some actions are just inherently right or wrong, no matter the consequences. Think of the rule, you should not lie. A deontologist would say lying is always wrong, period.
Then you have the opposite view, which is utilitarianism. This is all about the consequences. The best action is the one that creates the greatest good for the greatest number of people. It's a cost-benefit analysis of morality.
And a third one is virtue ethics. This one doesn't focus on rules or outcomes, but on character. It asks, what would a good, virtuous person do in this situation? It's about being courageous, honest, and compassionate.
So the researchers watched which of these frameworks the AIs used at each step of their reasoning, and what they found was really surprising. You might expect an AI to be super consistent, to pick one framework and stick with it, but that's not what happened at all.
Not even close. The AIs were constantly jumping between different frameworks. They called this moral framework drift. In fact, they found that in over half of the consecutive reasoning steps, the AI switched its ethical lens. It might start by talking about a rule, then in the next sentence pivot to the consequences, and then end by considering someone's character.
That sounds messy, like the AI is just confused and throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. Only about 17% of the time did an AI stick to a single moral framework from beginning to end.
It does sound messy, and that's what the researchers thought at first, so they ran another experiment. What if we force the AI to be consistent? They instructed the models to solve the dilemmas using only one ethical framework.
And what happened? Did the AIs suddenly become moral geniuses?
The exact opposite. Their accuracy actually went down. Forcing the AI into one mode of thinking made it worse at making moral judgments. The best results came when the models were given a structured, step-by-step process, but had the freedom to mix and match different ethical frameworks.
So this framework drift isn't a bug, it's a feature. The paper suggests this is a form of constructive moral pluralism. It's like how a thoughtful human might consider a problem from multiple angles. We might think, well, the rule says this, but the outcome of that would be terrible, and a kind person would probably do this other thing. The AIs are doing a digital version of that.
But there is a very important catch. While mixing frameworks can be good, chaotic mixing is bad. The researchers found that reasoning paths that were all over the place, what they called unstable trajectories, had a serious weakness.
A weakness?
They were gullible. The models with unstable reasoning were almost 30% more susceptible to being tricked by persuasive attacks. If you gave them a bad argument disguised as an expert opinion or an emotional appeal, they were much more likely to flip their decision.
That makes sense. If your own reasoning isn't built on a solid, coherent foundation, it's easier for someone to knock it over. So, a structured, multifaceted approach is good, but an disorganized, unstable one is a vulnerability.
Now, this is where the paper gets really futuristic. The researchers didn't just look at the text the AI was writing. They used techniques to peek inside the model's brain while it was reasoning. They used something called linear probes to find out where in the model's many layers of neurons this ethical information was being processed.
Wow, so they could literally see a representation of deontology or utilitarianism light up inside the AI's network.
In a manner of speaking, yes, they could decode it from the patterns of activations. And even more, they found they could gently steer those internal states. By subtly changing the activations in the right layer, they could encourage the AI to have a more stable and coherent reasoning process.
That's incredible. It's like being a neuroscientist for an AI, nudging its thoughts towards more robust patterns. So what's the big takeaway here? Why does this all matter?
It matters because it shifts the goal of AI safety. For a long time, the focus has been on the output, training the AI to give the right answers and avoid the wrong ones. This paper shows that it's just as important to look at the process. We can now evaluate the quality of an AI's moral thinking, not just its final conclusion.
And they even created a new metric for this, right? The MRC score.
That's right, the Moral Representation Consistency Score. It's a single number that captures how coherent and stable the AI's moral trajectory is. The idea is, in the future, we won't just train AIs to be accurate, we'll train them to be good reasoners, to build their moral judgments on a foundation that is logical, robust, and understandable to us.
So instead of just teaching the AI what to think, we're teaching it how to think more clearly about some of the hardest questions there are. A fascinating glimpse into the mind of the machine. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for tuning in to Daily Papers.